Hi, I'm Drew.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome to Drewling Samantics.
Drew? Drew, where are you, mate? Hello?
Sam, Sam,
where are you?
I'm behind you.
Oh, for goodness sake.
I'm so sorry.
But behind me, what, like your career is behind you? I'm joking. But I can tell you what, I've heard that quite a lot this week. Not the career.
I was about to say, yeah, there you go.
In full swing, no doubt. But anyway, mate, lovely to see you. How are you? All right.
I'm good. I'm good. I mean, come on, though. I mean, you say you're in full swing. You've had a week at it now. How's it going?
I tell you what, I'm loving every minute, but I'm also making the most of having a refreshment now and then. Are you locked and loaded as well?
Well, I am. Yeah, I've got to keep a clear head, but there we are, locked and loaded. Cheers mate. Cheers to you.
But yes, no, full swing for rehearsals. First week in the bag, and it's been brilliant. It honestly, I just love panto, mate. I really do. Is it the most fun you can have on a stage? Well, I think quite possibly.
I think so, mate. I think so. Yeah.
It's been fabulous. Everyone in the cast is brilliant. The creative team are amazing. It's just a really, really fun week, and looking very much forward to what's to come as well. Whereas you're a lazy start this year, aren't you? You're not quite there yet.
I'm a week behind you. I'm playing catch up. We start tomorrow, so I've spent a week of script prep and a couple of production meetings. Because for me, not just playing the honor of playing Dame, but I'm directing as well.
Yes.
So the added responsibility.
Yeah, you got multiple hats on for this one.
Yeah.
And, it's quite an interesting thing because, as you know, and people listening or watching will probably know, I haven't really done any directing, or it's certainly never been a route that I've deliberately tried to go or had that much interest in, so to speak. I've been involved in productions where I've had some sort of input or helped with development, but certainly never to the level where I was the sole director or in charge of the creative side of things. So how do you find like adjusting between, and is it even more difficult at the moment, or I know you haven't started yet, but you're about to, doing both at the same time?
I mean, it wasn't a route that I ever thought I would go down. But I'd always directing fascinates me. I read quite a few books about directors and sort of books about acting written by directors. So and when I had the opportunity, and it was years and years ago, as you say, my career is all behind me, but but it was a few years ago, and it was directing pantomime. And I knew the producer very, very well, a lovely producer called David Lee, and he ran Pantoni Pantomimes, Pantoni Productions, and I did I think it was 6 pantomimes, but it was in a small venue in Luton, the Library Theatre in Luton, which is my hometown. And he said to me, and I'd done 2 or 3 for him, and he said, "Drew, would you like to direct?" And I went, "I really would, yeah." And I'd done plenty of panto and worked with really good directors and really good panto performers. And I thought, well, I know the style and I know the what is needed, the shtuck, if you like it, and what makes a good panto. And I'd learned a lot from David. So the opportunity came up, and I thought, yeah, I'll go for it. And at that time, I wasn't playing the Dame. It was Dick Whittington, and I was playing Alderman Fitzwarren, Alice Fitzwarren's father. So it was a smaller role, and so it meant I could direct at the same time. But partway through, I did take over from the Dame because personal circumstances. He had to step out for the last week or so of the run. So I did take over as Dame, which is the first time I played Dame. So it was my first directing stint and my first stint at playing Dame.
I mean,
So,
if you're going to go for it, might as well go balls to the wall from the off, mate. Jesus.
Exactly. But yeah, it was, I mean, doing two jobs is interesting because I almost try and come into to doing it like really knowing. I mean, I learnt the lines for Alderman Fitzwarren. I knew exactly what I thought I was going to do, which isn't a great deal for me. He toddles on and says a few lines, has a few funnies and a few feeds, is in a few gags and routines, and toddles off. So it wasn't a great difficulty to step back and sort of, right, in this scene, I'll be doing this. But it was very strange to run around with the script in your hand, reading all the lines and go, okay, why don't you, and it's the physical sort of being there as well as, directing and being there and then physically being in the scene is really interesting. I find that, yeah, it's quite a challenge. And also being disciplined with yourself to go, other actors go, does that work? Does it work if I do that? Am I all right standing here? What do you need from me to make it work? Because I know what I want you to do, and I know what I think I'm going to do. So there's a lot more discussion than usual.
I guess you can't be precious with your vision. And I understand that it's not quite the same as being the writer who has put these things down on paper and has written a story and has visualized something happening or something taking shape. The director is slightly different from there as well. But you do have to kind of go, right, this is what I've envisaged, this is what I've planned for this scene, for this part. Oh, someone suggested something else. It doesn't match up to what I've said, but actually it's better. And I've been lucky enough that I have been in many productions where I've been given quite a lot of flexibility within my role. Particularly, we had them on the show a few weeks ago, the lovely Emma and Anthony from the Truth Stops Here musical. And that was a workshop when I first worked with them. So actually the idea behind it is, here is an idea, here's something that's written, now let's develop it. So the whole premise is that the initial isn't the same as the final outcome, which I guess you could say is the same with any production. But in this case in particular, it was designed so that things could change for the better, and the development was the sole purpose rather than just taking what was already there and recreating it, I guess. And I found it really rewarding to be able to have input in stuff like that. But it is difficult, I think, not to. So I got certain characters I played in certain things. I love them to death and think this is what my character would do. And then someone says, "Oh no, why don't you try this, or why don't you do this?" And there is that little voice in your head that goes, "But that doesn't match up to what I was thinking at all." And for an actor, hard enough to kind of go, "No, actually, I've got to do what I'm being told, or what's right for the scenario." Let alone then being a director trying to move others and make all the cogs work together. So hats off to you, mate. I mean, I don't think I could do it to that level, particularly doing two things at once.
I mean, it's from when I've just been directing, as the director, and I directed some shows with I used to do a season, the classic thriller season in Nottingham Theatre Royal, with a producer called Colin McIntyre, and he passed away a few years ago and has now gone on to a new team. And we're all really good friends, and we work together. It's weekly rep, so it'd be a week, a show in a week, or a show in 4 days, really. So you're rehearsing one, you're going home and learning one, and then in the evening you're performing one. So there's always one or two or at least three shows in your head. And so you got a limited time. But I knew everybody really, really well. And it's great because actually all you really need to do is have a sort of kind of vision of the production, what you think. And they did. Said, you put it on. And I knew the house style. I knew what the thrillers were about. Again, a bit like pantomime. Well, these were my mates, and I knew they would do that. It's like saying, well, I know this guy is going to do this in this scene because that's A, what the scene requires, B, he's an enormously experienced actor, and C, he knows what the audience hear and what the theatre expects. So all I actually need to do is really say, could you do it quicker, faster, stand behind there, move over there. And you're literally just controlling the pieces on the chessboard. And then when it comes to the tech, I have an input on the lights, but there's a really good designer. So the designer would come and say, right, this is what they're wearing, this is what they're going to be standing on. There's your ground plan. That's what you're working with. Doors there, sofa there, table there. Get on with it. So it is like a big sort of Lego toy. You're just putting everything together. But the rewarding thing was, because these are really good actors, really experienced, they would then turn around and go, do you think I should do, or can I, or you'd go, why don't you? And they go, yeah. So there are those moments where you could share, like the reading and development stage, the workshop stage or something, because that's essentially what rehearsals are. But it was nice to have your mates go, I really like that bit. Thanks for that, Drew. And you think, yeah, And then the next week they'd be directing me. And they go, what he did last week, that glass. Yeah, do that. I said, do it. They'll have forgotten by now. So because we had audiences turning up week after week after week.
Yeah.
So yeah. So they'd recognise it.
What about writing? Because again, it's not something that I've had a great deal of exposure to or involvement in, but obviously you did, again a few weeks ago, you did your pumpkin show. You also got the immersive jungle shows, all of which you've been one of the creatives on. So yeah. Is it difficult to go from writing to then performing to directing, or how do you find that they actually tie in and make it easier?
That actually is with the jungle, we were given, for those people who don't know, a friend of ours built a jungle, an inside jungle.
Just build a jungle, like
just build a jungle,
some elephants and stuff.
But it's a beautiful it's a beautiful jungle, a children's experience. They walk through. There are animatronics and rivers to cross and caves to crawl through. But that was there. That was, if you like, the set. And there was a premise that there would be 7 jungle gems lost. And Alex and his dad, and these characters were already there, would find them. And it was like, but I don't know. Then, the guy turned around, the producer turned around and said, but I don't know how to go any further. I've built it, I've created it, but I don't know how to get what's in my head. So Verona and myself were given the task of writing something that would fit around these 7 different stages in the journey through the jungle. It had to include everything. It had to be reasonably educational as well, I wanted it to be, because, as you know, natural history is one of my passions. Yeah. And then we had to get, excuse me, then we had to make sure that worked. Get the actors on board that would play the jungle guides, that would guide the children, the families around. So we had a good basis, because we look at it and go, this is absolutely amazing. And we got really excited. So that actually helped to have something in place that we didn't have to create that. So we could write around something that was already there. But there were so many different elements that you think, we've got to get that in. We've got to get that in. You couldn't miss anything out. You couldn't ignore anything that was already created, this beautiful jungle. Yeah. The other thing we had to do as well was the casting. So when it came to casting, we had to make sure that the actors were enthusiastic. They could work in that situation, guide the families round. And then, so we had auditions. So that was something I'd only done once or twice before, the other side of the table. And then directing, then taking our writing, and very often, they would go, oh, could I say this, because I've come up with an idea of a character, and I go for it. Yeah. So yeah, like you're saying, you can't be precious about, in this case, our directing, our writing, our ideas. So, you just go like, yeah, okay then. But that was exciting. That was nice to know that what we'd written and what our ideas were being accepted and then worked on. So that was, and No, I mean, that was several years ago now, before The Unwelcome Guest, and you know, and we've taken it and rewritten it and adapted. So that's had a journey. That's had a real journey.
And I guess it's rewarding and interesting for you to be at many different stages of that journey, to be involved in so many of the cogs that go together to turn to make the big final machine, so to speak. So it's
an
interesting process.
And it's an ongoing process, because I suppose when you normally do a job, if you get a job, you know, it has a finite time. So if, as a director, you direct for two, 3, maybe, I don't know, 6 weeks or whatever, and then you go and come back and look at something every now and again. But with this, with Jungle Monkeys, we are continually involved, you know, and we, you know, we'll get an idea and say, can we do that? Or production values, we need to go in and sort of look at the, you know, how it's looking, get new staff and get new cast members. So yeah, it's that we never left. We don't leave that alone. That's a continual, you know. So watching, as you say, watching it grow and change and that, but never going away. You don't come back and look at it. It's like you're always there with it. So yeah, it's not, and that's nice, you know. But the temptation would be to sort of keep hold of it all the time. And what we don't do is we do leave it, you know, and we go in and do shows occasionally and tours, so that we know it still works as well, which is good fun. But yeah,
I think though, and again, I haven't been massively involved in the creative side of much, but you and I have both done immersive dinner shows that have been written specifically as brand new shows that we've then come on board as part of the cast to. It's never been referred to as a workshop, but I think that's essentially how it's been targeted. Right, let's run this for the first time. We call it rehearsals, but essentially it's, does this work? What do we need to change massively? Rather than something that is completely there in a form and might need the odd tweak. These are things that actually need quite substantial input. But there's an element, I think, to those where, as much as you want to be flexible and want to create and want to make the best outcome or shape the best final product, you do also need to keep its integrity, particularly with stuff that we do where it's developed or in homage, so to speak, to something that already exists and is very much well known, well liked, and has its own shape and form. So there, I think that's probably the most, other than the workshop for the musical, the most I've been involved in the creative side of a production like that.
What difference do you find that? Because like when you're doing the, you know, you develop the immersive stuff, and as you say, the characters are there, and people know what they do. And then you've got to put those characters that already exist and are well known and loved, and you can't muck about with them, but you've got to put those then into a new show. How different do you find that to, say, doing The Truth Stops Here, where you were literally creating a character and able to have input on that? Is there one you prefer doing to the other? I know.
That's real tough. Like, it is an honor to play famous, beloved characters. 100%. I absolutely adore it, and I am a big fan of being handed a script or being handed a character breakdown and someone going, right, this is what you're doing, and knowing that, right, here are my constraints, here are what I'm working to. I just need to go within this structure and make it my own, not so much, but enjoy it. So particularly, as people know, I do Boise, and Only Fools and Horses, and Trigger. Now, they are very, very recognizable. They have certain traits that if they weren't there, then the character is no longer believable or no longer recognizable. So you can't make, for example, Trigger this really outspoken, intelligent, like conversational guy, because that's not who he was as a character. He was limited speech, quite unaware of his not surroundings, but you know where I'm coming from with that.
Yeah.
So you have to stick within that, but you can modernize a little bit. So you can reference modern things. You can adapt with the times, but you still have to have the core values to that character. On the flip side, developing a brand new character, again, you do still have a character breakdown. You do still have ideas about them, but because they are not established, there's no reason that you have to fit in an exact kind of frame, for example. Or it's not like you're going from a book to a movie as a random kind of similarity. If people have been fans of books for years and have these character images in their head, you're never going to match everyone's image on screen. But if people love a book or love a script or love something for how someone is, and then you completely change them, you're going to alienate some of your audience. Yeah. So I think that's where it differs massively, because when something is not established, you have the freedom to do it, and then people can pick or choose whether they like that person as you develop them or that character as they've come across at that point. If you've already got something massively established, by not sticking to it and by making things hugely different, and it can almost clash and feel awkward. As to answering your actual question, which one do I prefer? No idea. I love I love the flexibility, and I love knowing that I've created this character or I have developed this character. They are fully my own. As with the musical, as with previous musicals I've done, I did a musical called Game Over, where weirdly I played Death, who it's an incredible piece of theatre because it's all written about suicide and mental health and depression, with some tongue-in-cheek humor, but some very important underlying kind of ideas and themes. But I got to develop Death, albeit he was still the guy that sort of welcomed the dead or picked and choose who was dead. But he was a completely unique character. He essentially was a game show host. And hopefully the show is going to tour again. We did it a few years ago, and there are plans hopefully to take it back out on the road. And if that does happen, and obviously I will promote and tell everyone
absolutely
where it is, without sort of blowing my own trumpet. The piece itself is incredible, and I think it needs to be seen. I think it's a very, very important piece of theatre for how the state of the world is right now, and has been for quite some time, and things like awareness and that are very important. But anyway, I've gone off topic. So I love developing something new. I love putting my own swing on things and being able to go, this is how I've interpreted the writing and the description. This is how I'm bringing it to life. And if it works, great. I also love having the honor of reproducing a character who already exists and not making them my own, maybe putting my own little twists on them, but within reason. So equally, I think probably they're both equally rewarding and enjoyable, but I feel like you're going to go one way or the other.
No, I'm the same. I mean, it's because when I come into it, when I sort of start directing stuff, and I try and have as much information as I possibly can for the actors. The actor guy, well, what about this and what about that? You know, so there's loads of research. So, I mean, I know sometimes we've done with the interactive stuff, the immersive stuff. We've sat there and gone, actually, my character wouldn't say that.
Yeah,
you know, and you're justified because you know the actor that originally created Manuel doesn't say that. You know, Del Boy doesn't say that. So you can go, you know, and then there's always that famous line where people say, I don't think my character would say that. Actors say that. In that case, you're justified. But then sometimes an actor will go, I don't think my character would say that. And I sit there as a director and go, okay, justify why she wouldn't say that. You know, what's your idea? And they go, blah. And you go, yeah, absolutely. Bang on. Lovely. Great. We've moved one step further on with the character development and the play. And sometimes, you know, you get there and that's why it's quite exciting because you get an actor who sits in front of you and is bursting with ideas and bubbling with stuff, and then gets to a halt and goes, I don't know what this means. I don't understand this bit, and you go, aha, and you can unlock something, and then it all flows out, But there are those times as well, and I've worked with a couple of people who are brilliant actors, but who just sit there and go, right, direct me, tell me, give me something, and you can give that, and then it snowballs, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and they get wonderful. And there are those actors who will complete remain nameless, who never snowball, and you sit there and go, if I never see you again, I will be immensely happy.
We've all worked with people who, that's what's on the script, that's what it says I do, that's what
I'm going to do it.
Yeah, completely inflexible, which I guess in some situations works perfectly because the writing and directing is so amazing that the actor doesn't need to do anything but do as they're
That's true. Yeah.
I reckon that's quite rare, though. I think having the flexibility, and I think you do need to not be straight and narrow, do as is done, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean it's. I mean, I say I like to go when I'm directing. I go in there and I have loads of ideas and loads of options I can you can throw at the actors, but also bear in mind as well that different actors work in different ways. I mean, my way of working is probably very different to your way of working. Everyone has their ways. So you can be in a room and arrive first morning of rehearsals, and there's someone sitting there. They're completely off book. They've learnt it, and they're almost starting to give a performance. And then there's another actor who sit there with locked into the book and into the script, and and they'll get there, but they'll get there in different times. And sometimes it's frustrating because the person who's giving a performance already, maybe they're a little bit more difficult to direct. And well, I thought you might say that, or we could do it, And then the person who's completely on the book may be the one that's totally open to, they're working their way through the script, and and it could be vice versa. So that's something as I've got older, I've got more mindful of the different ways people work as an actor. So when I direct, I take that on board and go, okay, he'll be fine, And someone said to me, and also it's time frame, because as you know, we don't have long in panto. We don't have long in, to get that on. So, I mean, you're starting to think now, crikey, you've only got a few days left and we've got to start teching and dressing.
Yeah. Next week. Which it's terrifying, but also hugely exciting. But I mean, talking of panto, and obviously you've directed things that aren't panto and directed pantos. On the subject of lines, accuracy, development, I worked with a wonderful panto producer who used to refer to it as spreading.
That's great.
But for people not in the industry who perhaps don't know the differences behind the scenes with regards to panto and perhaps a normal production, I would say panto, you're given a huge amount more freedom than any other style of performance. In that, yes, there's a script, yes, you stick to it, but the flexibility and the sort of going off in certain directions is almost encouraged, because that's the nature of the kind of performance. It's, of course, panto is polished and finished and very not to ruin the illusion, but almost every show is exactly the same in what we want to deliver.
Yeah.
But you try and make it feel not like that, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, as you know, you've got to be alive to, because there's no fourth wall. We're having a conversation with the audience, right the way through, particularly when you encourage them to, to shout and get involved. Yeah, I mean, I and as you say, everything is there are very few improvised moments in panto. They are rehearsed. People saying, "Oh, he laughed." He laughed at that. Yeah, he laughs at that.
You forget his name. Oh, that was hilarious. Yeah, we don't do that every night.
Never do that. No, that's it. No. But there are, but then there are those moments that you get something from the audience. and you run with it. You know, I mean, I had a guy one night. He got terrible cramp. He came round to the stage door to apologise. But I was in the middle of a scene. Dame's doing this. I think, well, I know what it was. It was Widow Twanky is in her laundry, and I'm there with Wishy Washy, and we're doing this scene, and there are soap suds everywhere, and bits of clothing, and kids are getting in and out of washing machines. This whole thing's going on. Suddenly, in the middle of this audience, this guy stood bolt upright, went, "Oh God!" And everything stopped. Everything stopped. The band stopped. Everyone was straight out the front. He's going, I'm sorry. I've got terrible cramp. I've got to move. And he moved across the audience and, you know, through the auditorium out the door. And it was like, and carry on. And it was just like this moment, you know, there was this momentary pause. And I thought, I just thought, I've got to say something as a dame. And I just looked straight out to the audience and went, I wonder if he needs me to go and give him a rub. And then the band just carried on, and we carried it, you know. But he came round to stage door afterwards and said, "I'm so sorry about that." You know, he said, "I had bad crap." I said, "Honestly, mate, I got a good laugh out of it. We carried on, no problem." But it met the whole theatre because it was like he'd been shot. He just stood bolt upright, and he was right in the middle of the auditorium, not off to the front or down, you know, right in the middle. Hundreds of people around him. You know, it was very funny.
So from a directing point of view, then, do you automatically give more flexibility or make it more open when you're doing panto?
I like everyone to be, I like everything, what we end up with on the page, so we can change lines and go through, but what we end up with is what we're going to do. Because you've got to have a framework. If you're going to go off and, you know, and you always have those scenes where you go, okay, something could happen here. If it does, we'll go off, but we'll come back to that point, you know, and you know exactly. I think it's got to be such a tight framework. But if you start
wrong, I don't want people listening to think that there's no structure and that we just kind of have a laugh with it and don't care. It is very, very controlled. But I mean a development point when you get in that room for the first time with your group of actors and your scripts. Do you have more openness doing panto for suggestions to come in because it suits that more?
I think because I think I see what you're saying. I think, and also because with panto, people are coming in to do a specific job. Yeah, there's the prince, there's the, you know, the male and female leads, the romantic leads, if you like. There's the dame, the comic, the villain, and you go into a rehearsal room and there's the script, and the villain says, I always like to open with this line. That's my line. I like. So then you'll replace maybe what's in the script with what he says, his set routine. The comic will say, well, that's I'll do my opening spot here. I did panto many years ago, and I got about 10 pages of scripts, and it just said opener, song, gag, busy bee routine, comic set, prince and princess, and that was it. And you went, and basically they went, yes, so we do that, and I had very little to do in it. I was just sort of learning, and, you know, and I had very little to do. And I was just basically the foil in all the gags. And I learned all these routines that I had we'll do the wishing well there, and then we'll do the present for a pheasant there. And he's going, I don't know these routines. And that was it. It was all written in shorthand. And then everybody did their stuff that they do, because there was a couple of there was a well-known stand-up, there was a well-known singer, there was a well-known double act, there were a conjuring, a magician, and they just did their stuff, and it dropped in, and there was a little link of a storyline, and you got to the end, and everybody got married, and the villain was cut, and you went, that's a really bloody good panto, but there's no script there.
No,
you know. So I think
that a comic will be asked to put their own thing together, isn't it?
Yeah.
Obviously, as you say, there are panto skits or routines that are in most pantos, and they sort of rotate between whichever one you're doing, and you just fit in certain bits that are family favourites or traditional, and that makes up a lot of the production, then you'll have a comic who is normally a name to some extent or has their own existing routine that they can adapt and put in, which then tends to give the audience what they're there for. A lot of the time, a lot of pantos sell on the basis of the names they have in the shows.
Absolutely.
Not taken away from what you or I do, not being there.
No.
We are integral. But we'd be naive to think that a lot of tickets aren't sold because of who's in it. So you're not going to sell tickets based on having someone in it. Joe Pasquale, as a random example. I know is he at Milton Keynes this year? I can't remember where he is.
Yeah, I think he is.
But people are going to see his style of comedy and what he does. That he will be one of the reasons that they are going. So the script will either be written to suit him, or they will leave appropriate gaps or give him, right, here's what we need in this gap. Can you please write something or adapt something you already have? Yeah,
the script will reflect the strengths of the people you've got. Even, if you haven't got a name per se, you've got someone who has done, villain for 15 years. They'll know exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And exactly. I've got a few lines as Dame that I always say, right, I'm going to put that line in there because we need a gag here, or we need something to speed this up. We need to keep the audience with us because we've had a long scene, and I have done in panto before, there's been a long love scene and, and I sort of look over your shoulders as Dame and look at the audience and go, you following this? You are, yeah. Or could someone ring my agent, please? Any, little things like that, just to keep them involved because, so.
There are two lines and there are things that people almost expect that aren't anything to do with it, but are absolutely to do with it because that's what you want to be in there.
Yeah, it's like the ghost gag. The ghost gag has, is crowbarred into panto, but it's got to be there. But I've seen, thankfully nowadays there are a lot of new producers or bigger, up and coming producers that go, we're going to do it, but we're going to do it differently.
Yeah.
And that is really nice to see someone do it differently. I've got an idea for this year's ghost gag. So
without losing what people are there for, without
absolutely, the
recognizable feel and enjoyment. So,
but also it's nice to whip a little surprise, if you can,
absolutely,
which is what going back to what I was saying about researching and developing stuff and tackling new writing and then tackling something established. It's all about making it fresh and keeping it new, isn't it? Whatever you do. So yeah. So that's what I'll be doing next week, making everything fresh and new.
Excellent. Whereas I'm going to just be the best villain I can be with my final few days before up for performance. Yeah, it's gone so quickly already. I'm sure the performances will fly by as well, but it is absolutely my favorite time of year being back there.
I have to say,
I'm so excited for the run to come. I'm sure you are as well. I will do my best to come and see you, mate, but
likewise
we'll have to see if there are any days off. Not that we get many for anyone out there that thinks we might have it easy. No,
I've got one.
One day off. Well, I'm simultaneously rehearsing the musical as well, so I'm not sure I've got any, to be honest with you. But who knows? There might be an evening where you're late and I'm early, and we'll see what happens.
Do what we can.
Anyone that is in Potter's Bar or East Grinstead this Christmas or fancies travelling, you could always come and see Drew in a dress and me looking evil, which is not that different to what you see from what
we see now. No, really. Yeah.
Anyway, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up, and I know busiest time of year, both of us are all over the place at the moment, but it's still something that I wouldn't miss for the world. So thank you for finding the time to have a chat, and
you, mate, and you,
your upcoming rehearsals, and hopefully see you sometime soon. But if not, it'll still be on Zoom with a beer. All the best, mate. Cheers to you. Speak to you soon. See you later, everyone at home. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks again for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed watching this episode of Drewling Samantics.
If you have, then please consider subscribing to our channel and you'll get notified every time a new video is released. Don't forget, we're also available as audio only. Just search Drewling Samantics in any good podcast app.
Please support us on other social media too. We're on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and all our links and handles are on screen now.
We love welcoming new followers and subscribers, so please share with your family and friends and we'll be eternally grateful. Stay safe and we'll see you next time.